Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello and welcome to the latest episode. It's me, Lydia, your host, and I'm very pleased that you are joining me. It is Tuesday, the 28th of October, 2025. I have absolutely no clue where October has gone, to be honest. I know I say this about a few months, but October has really gone in a flash. And the clocks went back here in the UK over the weekend, sort of on Saturday night, which always completely throws me because the phones do everything automatically and I don't have anything that needs doing manually. And since I never got around to fixing the car radio, I don't even need to worry about that. So I never really know. I've just given up trying to work out what time it normally is and what it's supposed to be and what it was and blah, blah, blah. I just have to deal with things as they are. But what it does mean is that the birds are now going to bed at 5 o'clock rather than 6. So I need to be there in plenty of time beforehand to make sure they have their tea and settle everybody down for the night. So it just kind of really quite dramatically shortens the days, and then the evenings are a lot longer. So that's probably the trickiest part about this time of year, is making sure that I make sure I've got everything sorted so I am ready to put them to bed in time. So we'll start with some sad news in that my little hen Mo passed over the weekend. She has gone off to birdie heaven. So I really did try absolutely everything. I threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at trying to fix her. And if you listen regularly, you'll know she had surgery and she's had all sorts of antibiotics and treatments, and absolutely nothing's worked. And she did make a bit of recovery after the surgery, and she went back up with the girls. And then just after a week, things tailed off. So she'd been home with me, and she was with me over the weekend when she passed asleep. And she passed away like in her sleep. It was all very peaceful, which is lovely. And she passed away where her life began, because she started her life with me at home when her mum passed away. So that is terribly sad. I can't really imagine what life is going to be like without Mo, because she's been causing havoc for 2.5 years, ever since she hatched out. And she's just been, yeah, a central part of my life. And there's just an enormous hole where she was. But that is unfortunately life, isn't it? It's just rubbish sometimes, and these things happen. Anyway, it's not going to be a miserable podcast. It's terribly sad, but I have some exciting news for you, which is to say that generally speaking, I feel very much better. Now, it could be that all of the estrogen has really kicked in and I'm, you know, literally about 150% estrogen at the moment. But I think the main thing is that I made a decision last week that I was going to do retail next year. And it's sort of a decision that I have been faffling about trying to make for absolutely ages. But I didn't really realize it was a decision I need to make. And I had all those spreadsheets on the go, as you know, last week, and I got into a bit of a kerfuffle with it all, and then found the sort of the bouquet recipe one, what you need to grow in what proportion in order to make up these bouquets to take to farmers markets. And it's like a huge relief now. I've made the decision without really realizing that I've made the decision. I'm actually very excited about it, and it now presents direction and focus on what to grow, what to do, how to shape next year, what it looks like. And I'm actually very excited about it. And I know that it's going to be a lot more things for me to do and a lot more pressure in terms of selling, but I feel already a little bit more in control of things, rather than being reliant on just selling wholesale, which does feel quite out of control. You know, if florists don't want things, they don't want things. And I was not, I wasn't very adaptable this year. I'd kind of set a course and that's what I was going to do. And so we are slightly changing tack. The royal we again, it's just me, changing tack and doing retail and wholesale next year. I much hope that my wedding florist will buy from me in 2026, but I'm looking forward to the whole selling direct to the customer process. And on that basis, I have had an incredibly incredibly busy weekend, and I also have a shopping trip to tell you about today. So this weekend, I have been planting my new shrubs out. So the Hydrangea Limelights, the Eucalyptus, the new Lilac and the Cotinus have all gone out into the new beds where the turf was lifted last year. And what was interesting that, well, firstly, I'd forgotten just how shallow and rocky. It's not even stony. It's kind of just giant lumps of flint come out. Just how shallow the soil is. It really is about 50 or 60 centimeters deep, and that is it. So the roots are just going to have to go sideways, I think. The dahlias have managed absolutely fine. Everything else has managed fine. So I'm not worried about that. Um, so they've gone out, and I did have a little bit of a sort of dither about, oh, what's going to go where and whatnot. But the mothership was helping, which is great. And because she was there, I felt compelled to make decisions quickly. And she said, she said to me at one point, you really could have done with sort of making a plan and writing it all down. And I was like, I've been thinking about nothing else since August, and I just haven't been able to be firm. I said, I've made a plan. I have written it down on a piece of paper. It does actually exist. It's just that leap to like, okay, let's put them in the ground, because of course I can just move them, right? It's not a big deal. Nobody's planted 2 foot down. There's nothing that dramatic. It's just you don't want to move things once you've put them in. So you make a plan and you hope it's the right thing. And if it's not, I will just have to move them. So, yes, so the soil also obviously very shallow. So I'd forgotten about that. But it was in a lot better condition than I thought it was going to be, because it literally was a field with turf on it that had not been maintained or cut or anything for years. And so it was kind of quite tumpy, and the grass all got scraped. I hand weeded all of the thistles and the weeds and everything out. So it was immaculate to start with. But it has been obviously incredibly dry because I lifted the turf early on in the year, and then we had the heat wave, all of the droughts. And I was looking at the soil earlier thinking, oh, this is going to be horrific. I'm not entirely sure what's going to grow in here. But I made the decision that the shrubs were going to go down there because I wanted to keep the more cultivated soil for the baby things, like the little plugs and the delicate things that really need more of a helping hand. Like you just can't put annuals down there because they just give up. So it was not as bad as I thought it was, which is quite promising. So yeah, so the limelights have gone in. They need to be pruned down again to the framework. I bought them in the sale at the wholesale a couple of weeks ago, and they're a lovely shape, but they do need to just come down again. And then I transplanted loads of raspberries from my own garden. Apparently, and I don't know about this is just what I've heard from other podcasts and blogs and everything that I've been reading about, that raspberry canes are used for foliage in bouquets. It's a bit of a weird one for me to get my head around, because I kind of feel like it's sacrilege to cut the foliage before they've flowered. Like the whole point of raspberries is for the fruit. But mine didn't fruit very well this year. The chickens ate all the fruit off my raspberry canes this year. They just really struggled. But these ones are different. These ones have been in my garden for about 5 years, and they're absolutely enormous, doing really, really well. So I thought, I don't want them in my garden anymore. I'm going to put them up in the field and use the foliage. And I guess if I've made a mistake and I've got the wrong raspberries and they're not right for foliage, I will just eat the fruit, because these ones are very tall and the chickens won't be able to reach the fruit on these. So I also transplanted this weekend 8 peonies from my garden so far. So I've got about 4 to go. And then obviously I've got the ones that I bought a couple of weekends ago at the peony sale. They have been potted up, and I'm just waiting a little bit before I actually put them in the soil. And then the other thing that happened was that I transplanted my Verbena bonariensis. So I grew these from seed in 2024, and they flowered and they were beautiful this year. I did sell some, not as much as I thought I would. I don't think they're fancy enough for fancy weddings, is the conclusion I've come to. So I shall look forward to using those in bouquets next year. So I cut them down to, I don't know, maybe 3 inches above the ground and lifted them and moved them. So everybody, they all went on a little trip down to another section of the field because I want to put, as I said, just put all the new baby things into the well cultivated soil, and everybody that's already got a head start and quite comfortable, they can go off down to the new area. So it has been a really, really busy weekend. I mean, the weather was kind of in our favour. It's lovely. There was a bit of rain. In fact, there were showers on and off all day Saturday, but it was fine. So that is great. Now, I want to tell you about my shopping trip. This is very exciting. So I went to my local garden centre this morning to buy a whole load of bedding plants for a job for a client. So nothing to do with the cut flowers. And while I was there, I was rifling around trying to look for, just cheap things that are as cheap as possible because I have a very small budget on this job, and it's to do troughs outside a house. And, the budget is, yeah, it's pretty small, but I don't, if you make it look too miserable, then it just kind of reflects badly on me. So I like to have a bit of a rifle round and see if I can find anything that's reduced or that's like a buy one get one half price or something like that, so that I can just bulk the order up. So I was rifling around, and I haven't been into my local garden centre, Hilliers, for absolutely ages. And I must say I've been a bit overwhelmed with emails, so I haven't been reading all of my emails from, companies, because you just end up, subscribing to things, and then you just sort of get an absolute barrage. So I've had a bit of a blitz and unsubscribed from a lot of stuff and squirreled other stuff. Did you know you can set up rules so that your emails just go off into a folder that you've created? Genius. And you know me, I'll forget that I've made a folder and there will be stuff sitting there anyway. But anyway, the point is, I went on this shopping trip. I was having a rifle around, and Hilliers had got a sale on absolutely loads and loads and loads of stuff. So, needless to say, I have come back with some interesting things that I want to tell you about this afternoon. So, Physocarpus. Now, this is a sort of medium-sized deciduous shrub with quite pretty foliage. It's not sort of fine and airy-fairy. It's foliage from a shrub, but it's quite pretty. And you get all these different varieties that have different coloured foliage. And I have seen how it changes colour. And I'd heard about Physocarpus because I've been, again, studying what goes into a bouquet, what foliage people are using. And Physocarpus is one that comes up a lot. Now, in the States, if you're listening over there, it's known as ninebark. So I've been Googling it, going, well, what is this ninebark? I've never heard about it. And it's Physocarpus. So I bought 4 of them today. I've bought 2 Diablos and 2 Amber Jubilees, and they were £4 each. And they're decent sized plants. They're like 3.5, 4 litre pots. Nice tall plants, and they still had a few leaves on, so you can kind of tell how the color changes in the autumn, and I thought that was very pretty. And then I bought a couple of Rebes sanguinum, yeah, Rebes sanguinum, Oregon snowflake, which is supposed to be covered in very pretty small white flowers in late spring, early summer. So I'm hoping that will be quite useful. Now, I've read conflicting things about this because online I saw that it gets up to about, I don't know, 60, 70 centimetres or something, but the label on the plant that I've got says 1.2 metres. So 1.2 metres sounds very promising. And I think that will be very handy to have foliage early in the season, just have a little bit of colour early on, because there isn't like masses going on late spring anyway. So that I thought would be fantastic. And as I'm rifling, I found a rose. In fact, they had about a dozen roses, and most of them were all really yuck. But they had one called Creamy Parfuma. And this is a floribunda, very pretty, pale, creamy coloured flowers, as you would imagine. Doubles, very, very fragrant. Bred by Cordes, and not particularly tall, but I think that's okay, because I'm sure there'll be a use for it. Bud vases, smaller arrangements, that kind of thing. Apparently it has a high resistance to black spot, but the one I bought's got some black spot on it, so not sure how true that is. But I think that is quite nice. And for £3, I think that's pretty much worth a punt. It looks in good condition, the plant. Now, the total cost of everything was £38 for the 7 shrubs, which is a whopping saving of £88. But I mean, it's not a saving per se, because I would never have paid retail prices for those shrubs. So some of those items I could have got down at my wholesalers, but their Phytocarpus were really big and they were £25. And I didn't want to pay that for a foliage plant either. So yes, it's a saving, but as I say, I wouldn't have paid those prices anyway. And hopefully, given that the prices I have paid, those plants will pay for themselves in their first year, which is wonderful. And then I will have to investigate how you do all the accounting for things that you've paid for, and then cost of production is down to 0? That can't be right. So I'll need to look that up. So I'm feeling quite happy about that. I've unloaded everything. Haven't got it in the ground yet. They can just sit up there for a little bit until I get the chance to get them in the ground. And hopefully that'll be before the weekend, because we are due quite a lot of rain over the weekend. And so that'll be quite good to get them in, all settled in before then. So that's what I wanted to tell you about that. The other thing that has dawned on me is that I haven't done my bulb orders yet. Never mind get them in the ground. And I'm seeing some people like putting their bulbs in the ground already, which is wild, because I often, well, you're not supposed to put tulips in too early if the soil is warm, because you can get tulip fire, which I don't think I've ever seen a case of tulip fire. And I'm always somebody, as you've probably guessed by now, that is late to doing everything, late turning up to anything, late with planting, late with everything. So I've often been planting tulips like in the run up to Christmas. But of course, then they're a bit later, which has never been a problem for me, because I quite like having things after the main excitement has worn off. But I need to be doing that in the exact opposite way for the cut flowers, because in the spring, of course, everybody's going to be desperate for colour, desperate for flowers. And there's no point me bringing tulips to the market when everybody's had a month of tulips and they're sick and tired of them and they want to move on to the next thing. So I really, really need to get my skids on with that. And I think I'm going to revise my tulip order down. I talked about this months ago, like my fantasy tulip wish list and the narcissus list for the spring. And as I am supposed to be refining my offering for next year and not getting too complicated and doing too many things, I think I'm going to revisit those lists and just maybe pick 3 or 4 varieties of each and just leave it at that, because I think I had about a dozen just on my narcissus list, which just seems absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if I tell you already, I have 19 perennials on my list already. And yeah, 17 annuals to do, 19 perennials. They're mostly already in the ground, actually. Then there's the shrubs, then there's the foliage, and then there's the other section, which has got peonies, roses, dahlias, bearded iris, and foxgloves in. So it's all kind of mounting up, and I thought, I'm not sure I want to have 25 different types of tulip and narcissus going on. And also I want to look into doing them in crates rather than doing them in the ground, because I think that might be a good option for me. But yeah, that's something that I need to look into. So if you have any experience of growing tulips in crates, then I would love to hear from you and hear how you've got on with it, if you've got any tips or anything. I don't fancy just messing about with the soil so much, and I don't really know why. I think it would just, on the scale I would want to do it, it just seems like lots of trench work, and I'm just not sure whether that is the right thing to do or not. So I thought crates would be better. So yeah, I need to get on with placing those orders and get those things booked so that they don't sell out. And the rest of the week is looking quite busy as usual. The second half of the week is normally very busy. But I will be back on Friday with another episode, and I very much hope that you will join me. And I hope you have a great week and stay safe. And I'll catch you on Friday.